players on the court, right? And so you got 1, 2, 3 front row, 1, 2, 3 back row, right? So you guys kind of can tell when we talk about serve receive, when we're receiving the serve, notice that these players are a little further up in serve receive. Does that change, Eli? When we were teaching in class, remember we were talking about receiving the serve. How did we want the players to stand? Did we want them to stand staggered, or do we want them to stand kind of more in a straight line? More in a straight line, huh? So you notice, like, in defense, when we're serving and playing defense, it's a lot different than when we're receiving the serve, right? So, like, if we're receiving the serve is coming at us, right? We want to kind of have 3 players across because it's easier to communicate, right? And we usually can, know where the ball's coming. But when we're playing defense, we like to take this player and move them up here, and this player moves back, right? So really we end up being somewhere like that. So we end up being here, here, and here, right? So kind of the idea is when we're playing defense, just like when we play 2-on-2, there's short shots and hits that can go, and then there's deeper ones, right? And so we need these players to be ready to play a shorter ball because we have blockers up at the net. And those blockers usually don't want to have to run back and play the ball because they want to stay up there to be blockers, right? And it's the whole point, because if back row players can't block, what's the point of them standing back? We want them up at the net, ready to stop whatever's coming on the other side of the net. So let's just kind of watch a little bit of volleyball and see how it kind of looks here.
So it's 1-1.
No, I'm just going through every serve. So actually, we're down right now, like 5-3, let's say, or something. Doesn't really matter. I don't care what the score is. We're not looking at this to look at the scores. Right. So one of the things that we teach with defense is, if you notice their positioning, right? What do they look like? Tell me, describe their body position. Let's describe the back row players.
They're like down and prepped and ready to roll.
Okay, so they're stopped. A lot of them are stopped. Sometimes they might be getting ready to move somewhere, but a lot of them are here, stopped. Their knees are bent. Huh? You guys notice that? If they're standing straight up like this, they're not going to be able to react. Yeah. So their knees are just slightly bent. They can be down like this, they can be like this, but if their knees are bent, they're good. Now the other one is what? Their arms. This player actually even has her hands ready to almost dig, right? But their knees stop, their knees are bent, and their arms are ready. So one of the big keys to the individual defense, the first key is just how you start, right? So it's stopped, knees bent, and arms ready. Hey, Jenny, what's up? You got the note?
Yeah, I barely could find this place.
Well, you did. All right. So then the next piece is how do they know what to look for, right? So maybe our piece now is going to be let's just go through and let's watch eyes. Let's just watch what our eyes are doing. Maybe they look at their heads. Just watch their heads. So what do you guys kind of notice when we serve the ball? How much do we move? Let's just watch. This ball just got passed. You guys kind of seeing what let's watch some more. So this play here, right? The ball got set where?
To the opposite.
Was that a 4, a 2, or a 5? This play was more of a slide, but it was to the zone, to the back set zone, right? But just, again, watch the front row blockers and watch the back row players, right? This ball is being passed. How many players are actually really moving a lot?
The front row.
The front.
2 front row.
2 front row players are moving to do what?
To
Blocking.
They gotta go block. But let's watch the back row again. Let's just kind of take a look at their feet. So what did the left back player? What's the left back player do?
Back player goes like
Covers shoulders.
behind the oh my gosh, the two blockers.
What kind of movement? What? How many steps do you think she took? From right here, right there,
Yeah.
to here.
Two steps.
Let's count it again. From right here. Ready? One, two, three. Right? So what she did was she went from this position, she went back to this position. Right? Why do you think that is?
Because wait, do you want to? Because she was trying to get. She was trying to prevent the line in case the hitter like.
Yeah, if the hitter hit line, who's protecting back here?
The middle back.
I mean, right
Not
now.
back, but yeah.
Right? So the idea is nobody. Right? If this player only stood up at the 10-foot line, or if she stood where she started, and they set the ball backwards, and there was nobody here to protect it, and they hit it hard, not tip or free ball, right? If they tipped it, I think this player could run down and get the ball.
Yeah.
Right? But the idea is, what we're doing is what we call a perimeter defense. You guys notice this? Right? So we're leaving the middle of the court, right? Because we assume that someone's taken that away. Who do you think that is, Malia? Why would we leave the middle of the court as the defenders? What are we assuming? What do we think is going to happen? Who do you think is going to stop that? If the defenders are leaving it, that means that's maybe some front row players are doing something. What are the front row players doing? They're blocking. So we're assuming that these hands are taking away the easy shot here. Does that make sense? Right? So just like every basketball team or soccer team, they all have a set defense and an offense. What's that?
Like zone defense.
It's kind of like a zone defense, right? Exactly. You're responsible for an area. Does that make sense? So when we call a perimeter defense, if the set went way out here, right? We would bring the left front and the middle front blockers over. We have their hands like this. Left back, if they're going to guard the perimeter, the perimeter is usually the outer area, yeah? So the left back needs to guard the perimeter of this outer area, right? And then she needs to be a little bit deeper because we're assuming that the short shot's taken care of. The middle back player is usually, we have them reading, and they might step this way a little bit, or they might just turn and face, right? And then the right back player is probably standing really close to where she started. Notice that? She didn't really move a whole lot, right? And then that other player right here, the right front player, just because it's really hard to run all the way over here and block when you're on the other side of the court, we just have her come off the net, right? So now you kind of look at this little area, and it's us guarding the perimeter of the court, right? So we have to work together, right? Because we're like, hey, block, we expect that you're going to take away the short shot, and we're going to be able to guard the perimeter. Yeah, you last.
So just say, for example, say that the ball actually does get over the net and it surpasses the blockers. So I'm guessing the middle back would be the one to go to the middle area.
To that short shot?
Yeah.
It wouldn't be. The middle back is kind of like the goal, right? And a lot of times what happens is the ball gets hit off the top of the hands. And if that middle back player, if this player moved all the way up here, who's going to protect back here?
No.
It's not going to be that player because she's already up, let's say like 12 feet. Could we have the 10-foot line here? Probably 12 feet. This player's probably around 15 feet. Maybe we'd like her to be a little deeper. But if this player also moved up, so let's say we move this player up like this. Now all of a sudden, this is our perimeter. And look at how much court we leave back here. Right? Does that make sense? So when you guys are playing defense, right, usually you have to have somebody that's like really deep, that's always responsible for making sure that if the ball hits off the top of the block or goes into corners, that they're able to run that down. So if you notice this shot gets hit, if a tip comes this way, what we do with our defense is we basically draw a line from the ball to the back corner of the court. And we say if this imaginary line is here, any ball that's tipped on this side of the line, this player is going to go get. Any ball that's tipped on this side of the line, this off blocker, right, now is responsible. Because in volleyball, if you're not blocking, you have to be defending. right? You can't just not do something. That makes sense? You know how we like when we do the over the net passing and we have the player standing in the front row and the ball gets hit short and they don't go for the ball? It's like, well, the back row player's got to cover the back and the front row player has to cover the front. So the next piece for us is, how do we know where the ball's going? Right? That's like the hardest thing in the world, right? Is like, how do we know where the ball's going, right? Solomon, when you're playing defense in soccer, what are you watching?
The players on the ball.
Huh?
The player that has the ball.
The player that has the ball.
Yeah.
Because the ball won't magically kick itself,
Yeah.
right? So you have to be watching for the player's actions, right? So if you just ran to the ball and weren't looking at the player up in front, by the time you looked up, they might be facing somewhere and kicking somewhere else, right? So everything we do is reading. It's all read-based, right? So I always tell my athletes, like, imagine trying to read a book, right? And you're just like, you're out there. So now take this book in your hand and you're reading this book and imagine trying to run or move and read it. And you're sitting there and you're trying to get the words in and you're trying to get information out and you're moving, right? How hard would that be?
That would be hard.
Really hard. What's the best way to read a book? Just kind of hang out. Just sit back and just watch and just read and really focus. That makes sense? So your eyes can really start to focus on things. And so the next key for defense is a sequence of reading, which we call ball, setter, ball, hitter. Alright? So we start to ask ourselves, ball, setter, ball, hitter. Let's find out kind of what this means. Okay? So ball. The first sequence is ball. Right? So as a front row and a back row, all 6 of us, right? Or if we're playing, even if it's 3 of us, or if it's 4 of us, or if it's 2 on 2, right? We have to go through this sequence, right? Ball happens right here. We're looking at, can you guys see my mouse? You guys see this?
Yeah.
We're looking at this passer, because that's where the ball got served, right? So the first sequence is ball. We're gauging the first pass. We're looking at the ball. We're going, okay, where is the pass? Is it good? Is it a good pass? Is it near the target? Is it going over? Is it off the net? Right? So let's watch. So we see ball. Okay? So this ball got passed. We know it's not going over the net. Have you guys noticed how much movement we've done?
No.
Jamie, how much movement did you see there?
About a ton.
Let's watch again. How many players moved?
No.
None. Literally none, right? Because we acknowledged with our read. We looked across and the ball got served and we looked at the passer and we realized that the ball, we had asked ourselves the question, is it over? Right? Why do we have to ask that, Eli?
So that we know.
The question is it coming over to our side? That's the question we're asking. So we ask ourselves, is it over? So in that scenario, did the ball go over the net or did it stay on the opponent's side?
Just do it.
Okay, so if it's over, if we answer yes, what do we have to do?
See where you do.
Well, if we serve the ball and they passed it and it comes back over, what do we have to, if we answer yes, if we're like, oh yes, it's coming over, what do we do? We play it. Like, we have to play it. Do you think we'd move then? Heck yeah, we'd all move and one of us would play it, we'd get off the net because now we want to hit. That makes sense? So that's a simple question. How quickly do you think you can decide if the ball's coming over the net? Let's try this. I'm going to toss this marker like this or like this. And you guys have to tell me as quickly as you can, yes or no, is it going over the podium? Does that make sense? You guys ready?
No.
No.
Yes.
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 No.
Okay, so how quickly can you make that decision?
Right.
Just like a couple seconds.
Yeah, and so if you're standing there playing defense, right, and you're using this sequence, right, ask yourself the question, is it over? How many times when we were playing the doubles tournament, if you were playing against me, I just sent the ball right back over the net? right? And a lot of times maybe you guys weren't looking at what I was trying to do. So you were late reading what I was doing. By the time you actually saw the ball going over, you weren't ready to play it. Does that make sense? So we ask ourselves, is it over? Right? If we answer yes, play it. Right? Because it's on your side. You don't want it to drop. If we answer no, then we can look at a few things. So if no, then now we go to the setter. Right? Because Solomon, like we talked about in soccer, you don't look at the ball, you look at who's playing the ball. And if somebody passes it, now we got to look at the setter. Why do we need to look at the setter, Malia? What's important to identify?
Where it's going next.
Yeah. Where is she setting? Where is he setting? Where's the ball going? Right? So now we're looking here. So our eyes are now back on this setter. So we saw back, right? So immediately our blockers made a move together. Notice that they weren't wrong, right? The eyes, all the team has to have the same eye work. We have to train our eyes. And if I'm looking at different things than you are and we're on the same court, we're in trouble because our defense is going to be completely off. And so practicing this eye work is really important, right? Just learning how to read it, right? Early blocker, stupid. Bad eye work. So ball, is it over?
No.
No. So now everybody's eyes are right here on the setter. Can you guys guess where you think she's gonna set right now?
5.
You think she's gonna, who says, if you say back, raise your hand. Back? Who else? Who says middle? Or like, who says in front? In front?
Yeah.
Okay, here you go, let's watch.
Yeah.
Why?
Because her body was like forward.
Her arms were too in front of her to get like a good setback.
Yeah, so you're starting to see kind of the cues, huh?
yeah.
You're starting to see like, look at her body. She's actually in a pretty good position. And honestly, she kind of tilted a little bit and it almost made you think she wanted to set back. Let's watch it a little closer. Right there, she had a little tilt.
Yeah.
We were not fooled. We stuffed that. Tough play, right? Great block, and it comes back up, and they just kind of put it over. Unfortunate. What can you do, right? So now you start to look, and you go, okay, like defense, defending a whole court, it's not as hard as we might think, right? So now that we've looked at the setter, we got to ask ourselves the same question. Is it over? Some teams have one setter, which means for 3 rotations, she's in the back row, which means it's a little harder for her to put it over on the second contact, right? But for 3 rotations, she's in the front row. So she might jump and try to throw the ball down and put it over on the second contact. Remember, volleyball's not played, it's not automatic that you have to touch it 3 times. It doesn't matter how many times you touch it as long as you score, right? You can't touch it more than 3, right? So the ball could go over on the first try and you could score. The ball could go over on the second try and you could score. So part of your defense, right, this big sequence, right, this reading, all these reads, right, is you have to keep asking, like, it's kind of boring and repetitive, but it's also, you get ahead. You start to figure out, like, what's happening before it's happening because you're looking at the right thing. So you ask yourself as a setter, is it over, right? Yes? What do you think we do?
Play.
Yeah, dig it, play it, right? Dig it, get it up off the ground. Don't let it hit the ground. If no, what do you think we're doing? What we just talked about. Malia, you were saying direction. Where is it going, right? So you have to ask yourself, like, where is she setting it? We need to know the direction of the set, right? So if 3 players in the back row were looking at the hitters and 3 players in the front row were looking at the setters, we'd be screwed. That makes sense? If players were looking too far ahead, then we're not on the same sequence. Does that make sense? So for us, it's really important to get an idea, right, of what's happening. So now we have direction, right? So let's watch the next ball. Is it over?
No.
No. Where is she setting?
Forward.
Forward. How far forward?
Middle.
Why? Why do you think middle?
Because she's farther.
She's jumping.
She's jumping, but she can jump and set a lot of balls. What about her hands tell you, since when we learned how to set, what
Yeah.
about her hands tell you that she's not going to set far?
His hands not extend
Her
out.
hands are already way out in front of her, right? So to me, it looks like she's going to try to use her wrists to touch the ball. Look at that. Shorter set, went to the middle. That makes sense? Now all of a sudden we're looking and we're like, wow, we're noticing things that we didn't realize before, right? We can get ahead of the play. And so as blockers, you see our block, right? Even though we see it and we can feel it and we can anticipate it, does it mean that we move? Robert, what do you think? Why?
Because it hasn't happened yet.
Because you can't move to something that hasn't happened yet, right? Because if you're wrong, if she was like this and then she went boom and she threw it back and we already moved this way, guess what? Our entire defense is done, right? We have one blocker over here, one blocker was over this way, and now the offense has all this space and daylight, no blockers up. They can hit whatever they want to hit. Does that make sense? But thankfully, right, our eye work is pretty good. So we have two players that are able to get up on the ball. Now the problem here is, let's watch our setter. Look at what the ball is being set. Look at what she's doing. Do you guys notice? See how late she got stopped? Knees bent, arms ready. So on contact, she makes a late move. She took 2 backward steps. And just like that, she was this far away from digging the ball. And we get beat, and I was really pissed off. Is it over? No.
No, it's not.
Okay. Where is she setting? Forward. Good extension. It's probably going to go pretty far, huh? Right where my arms are. Bummer. We didn't get the ball. So again, notice that we play more of a perimeter defense. Notice that these two players, right here where my mouse is, notice that they moved, they're a little bit closer in. What do you guys think?
Because I think it's going to be a little bit short.
Yeah, and they would normally be here and here. But let's look up at the block. What do you guys notice that's different? It's not sealed. And sealed means this player right here didn't get all the way over. So if she didn't get over, that means this hitter can hit down. And if that hitter can hit down, our defense might be like, oh, space. And we might just take one small step in to fill the space. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Good teams will still hit deep hard, right? And beat a team that tries to suck in. But we played a team, we knew they're like, if they see daylight, they want to hit it down, right? Because they're good enough, right? Thankfully, this blocker was very disciplined, had her hands in a good space, and we were able to stop the ball one-on-one as a block. Right? So now let's start looking at, we know that the ball is we know that they set the direction. Now we're looking at the ball, right? So what are some things we're trying to find when we're looking at after the setter releases the ball? What are some things we know? We're looking at direction, but what else about the ball can we figure out?
Just like the speed of the average is set.
Yeah, the speed, right? How fast is it being set? What else? The height, yeah, speed is kind of the same. You can set a high, fast one. You can set a low, fast one. What else? What?
How in or out.
Yeah, kind of location or the depth, right? Sometimes the set could be really off the net. It could be way inside. It could be outside, right? How many times can you guys set, right? If this is the net, right? Here's the setter, right? All of you guys that try to set a 4, right? How often sometimes do you guys think you make a mistake? And you set it like a little too far inside? Probably happens, right? You try to set the ball and it ends up like that. Now, if I'm a blocker on this side and I'm reading that, and all I do if I see the set going out like I think it's a 4, and I just go all the way to the antenna and I just go, oh, this is where I go, right? But the set, I didn't spend enough time looking at the ball, I wouldn't know that it went inside. And then all of a sudden I'd be blocking a space that nobody's hitting. That makes sense? The hitter's hitting somewhere different. That makes sense? So now we're looking at like the speed. We're looking at inside, outside, like location, right? Height. There's all these things that we're trying to get information on, right? That makes sense? One of the principles in defense, like something that like we just kind of always know to be true, is that hitters tend to hit where the set takes them. So if a set took me way inside, I'm gonna probably go with it and hit it. If the set goes way outside to the antenna, I'm probably gonna just hit it out near the antenna, down near the line, right? So we teach like footwork, right? Here's like, let's say the X is how we teach footwork. Remember when we had that day where we were working on passing? If we didn't pass, we would shuffle, and then we would attack, right? If a set went way inside, and this hitter had to go that way to the ball, what's the likelihood that they're gonna hit that way? Pretty low, right? They're gonna probably hit the direction the set takes them. And so we just kind of have to play with that. So if the set takes them way inside, they're going to probably just go with the set and try to hit it in that direction. If a set went way outside and they could get to the ball, they're going to probably hit it in the direction it was. Does that make sense? You guys with me on that? Okay. Cool. This is good information?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. This is important stuff. It's really important to learn this.
That was a good dig.
So now let's start to watch the last piece. What's the last one in the chain, Eli?
Oh, hitting.
Hitter. So now that we know all this information, right? We know it's not going over the net. The setter sets it to the outside. We've read the location, right? Solomon, we talked about it. What's the most important thing? Is it the ball or the hitter? The hitter, right? You can't just watch a ball. If you're like a goalie on a penalty kick and all you do is look at the ball, you're done, right? You have to look at the player. Where's their foot? Is their foot open? Is it closed, right? There's all these different things that you're looking for. So let's watch the hitters now, right? This hitter, the ball is here. Looks like she's going to go past it. I'm going to say that she's going to hit this way. We were down 24-19, and we cut it to 23-24. And then they sided out.
That's very nice.
God, we missed 2 serves. Oh, yuck. That's a nice serve. Jesus. Very clean. Flat and clean. Yeah, you saw that. Really low, no spin. Right? A lot of movement. So let's watch this hitter. Where's the set taking her? Where's her body right now facing? Facing in the court. So it's going to give us a lot of information, right, as to where she wants to hit the ball. Right? What happens if a hitter goes like this? Yeah, it tells us that she's probably not wanting to hit it hard because she's not really leaning back. Dang, that was a nice dig, and we didn't. I think we net. Yeah, they were really good at running slides, backsides. They were predominantly right side heavy. So you saw there, right? Our middle was having a hard time. She wasn't making as big a move. She wasn't getting all the way out. So they hit down into daylight. They were pretty good about hitting it down. And that was a little bit faster than we can handle. But it's no matter. It is what it is. So here was a scenario, right? Blockers, we saw the ball and we were like, notice that none of them blocked. Let's watch it again. Our left front starts to move a little bit, and then all of us were like, wait a minute, and our eyes told us something, right? So if you notice this hitter back here, where is she hitting from? Yeah, she's hitting from the back row. She's hitting behind the 10-foot line. And so we have a rule on our team that if we don't think that a player can score, if we don't think that like when they hit the ball, we don't think that they can hit hard enough, right, that they can score, we're not gonna block. Why? Why do you think that is, Solomon? Why wouldn't we block if we don't think they can score? I'm asking. There's no point. But I mean, blocking can stop the ball, right? But what else can a block do, Jamie?
Well, I was gonna say because passing is maybe more controlled and we can hit it.
Yeah, okay. So we think that we can dig the ball, right? We're like, man, you know what? They're not a threat. I think I can control this better than you can hit it, right? And what else where we might be vulnerable if we block?
Less defense. Well, less court coverage.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe there's more tips and other spots available, right? But to me, there's a big thing, right? These hands, right? Look at all of this area. Here, 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 here. Huh?
Could it deflect off your hands?
Yeah. We sometimes can block. It's a weaker shot. Our timing might be a little off. Maybe we jump to block it and they just kind of hit some part of our hand and it just deflects down on our court. Now all of a sudden everybody was in this really good position to dig the ball. It was an easy ball that came over and we call them tooling sticks. We call these tool sticks, right? When you tool the block, it means that you hit off the block and out of bounds or into the court, right? So that's a strategy for hitters when a block is really well formed, right? And you can't hit down. You got to find a way to hit somewhere. You don't want to hit easy because the defense is ready for it, right? So you have to find a way to tool or take advantage of the block. So we have a rule on our team. It's like, my rule is if the ball is on the way down, like if they can hit it down, you're going up. That means you're blocking because they can score. But if the ball is going to be on the way up, you're staying down. Does that make sense? So if the ball has to go up and over the net, tells me there's going to be a lot of time. Right? If a ball has to go up and over, we have time to dig it. Does that make sense? Right? So if they can hit it hard and down, we better go up to stop it. But if we don't think so, right? You guys watch here. We saw the set. Look at everyone's eyes. They're like, wait a minute. And we were like, you know what? This is a dig. And we got a good controlled dig. And we were able to get a good swing. And we ripped the ball inside out. That player number 2, she had a tournament. She had something like, in 3 matches, she had like 44 kills, only 7 errors, I think, in the whole day. Passed like almost perfect, like a 2.46 or something.
Wow, that's really awesome.
Okay, so now we're looking a little bit. Notice this blocker here. What is she doing here? Ball is passed pretty perfect. What is she doing?
Going to block it.
Yeah, so as blockers, if we're standing like this and the speed of the set is too fast for us to wait to make a move, we might start our move before the set. In case if it comes, now we're just going right with it and we can stand there and block it. We call that loading, right? Where we load and we get ready for an offense that might come fast, right? We're still looking, right? We're still having to get off the net and recover. Decent blocking hands, right? This player probably should have made more of a move, but it was a good thing she didn't. She was ready for this tip. Do you notice where our setter usually is setting from when we dig the ball? Not just right side. She usually is setting from near this 10-foot line, near the middle of the court, right? So that's kind of the next move with our defense, right? For me, like the principles are the same. You have to face the ball. You have to angle your arms, right? We want the ball to be high, 20 feet in the air if possible, and 10 feet off the court, or 10 feet off the net in the middle of the court. Why do we want it 10 feet off the net?
For the approach.
Why don't we just dig it right on the net where our target is? Well, why don't we pass so tight to the net in our class? Caleb, why? When we pass the ball and serve receive.
Well, I mean, we pass the ball like really tight to the net because.
Why? I actually don't. I ask you guys not to. Remember, I always say stand off the net. Why? Because what?
We're gonna net.
You might net. That's a fault.
Okay.
If you dig the ball too tight, what happens?
He into the net.
Yeah, it goes over. Why would we dig and have half of the balls that we dig go over the net? So we have to train ourselves to dig high,
Yeah.
10 feet off.
Okay.
So if we dig, if this is the net, and here's the 10-foot line, and all of our digs went right here, right? Some of them might go here, but some of them might go over here. And that's the other side of the net. So we put our target in this area. We try to dig the ball high here, so that if some of them go too tight, they're still on our side. If they go too far off, they're still on our side. That's the most important thing. If you dig a ball, you want to be able to set it. Why would you dig so tight, right? Another high dig, slightly off, didn't go to target, but it was high enough, and we created an opportunity to hit, and we get a point. So, thoughts on defense? What stands out for you guys? Yeah, Caleb.
What stands out for me is not put my passes so close to the net,
Okay.
because otherwise, they might go over or the center might net, and that's not good for our team.
Mhm.
So also what I need to do is run a perimeter defense where like the middle is like to the right
Okay.
of where the
So there's
hitter is.
and there's different types of defenses, right?
Yeah.
If we know a team loves to tip,
Yeah.
right? Like they're not even a hard-hitting team. That's a great strategy against teams that don't know how to adjust or change. If you see a team playing perimeter and they're all in the back, and you have a really well-placed tip right over the block, that's a point. Doesn't matter how hard you hit it, right? What matters is like what you see and what's open, right? And if you see it open, you get it. And if a team doesn't adjust, they're going to be able to get that. So if a team likes to tip a lot, what we might do is we might say, run a rotational defense. Right? Maybe we run a rotational defense where if the set goes this way, if this is right back, and this is middle back, and this is left back, and we want to cover the big important parts of the court, we have our right front comes over here to block, our middle front is here to block, there's the hands, and our left front is over here and they kind of come off the net, right? We might rotate to cover this area. So this player would rotate up and be here. This player would have to rotate because what did right back leave? They left the open space, right? If they left the open space. And then this player might rotate here. So now we're still trying to cover these spots. This player might rotate here. So everybody would rotate to kind of protect the other player's position where they've left. Does that make sense? So different defenses for different teams or different offense, right? So I'll bet all of you guys probably have an understanding of like what players like to do. Remember that one day where we were playing that back row threes game, and Robert just kept rolling the ball, and we were like, you guys, somebody needs to figure out that Robert is hitting short, and you have to rotate up to play it. But if somebody rotates up and he sees that, he might try to hit deep. So somebody better be rotating behind him. Now, what's a disadvantage to this?
There's a big hole in the middle.
Yeah, but we're taking it. We're covering that. What's a huge disadvantage to this?
Man, you know what? Never mind.
It could put you in a setter out situation.
A setter out situation? Okay, so that means normally our setters play here.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, setter could play the first ball. What else? Think back to reading. What was it easier to do? Was it easier to read standing still, or was it easier to read moving? Standing still. So when we play a perimeter defense, right, we've got right front, middle front, left front, they move a little bit off, 3 steps. Left back, what did you see them do on defense? Did they move anywhere?
Nope.
Middle back, do they move anywhere?
To the left.
Maybe like this. Maybe they're probably like this. Right?
Yeah.
Right back, what did right back do?
To the right.
Face it.
Remember when they set backwards? What did that player do? She shuffled back.
Shuffle back.
When they set out this way, this player might take 3 steps back, right? They might see the ball and protect their line, perimeter. So if you're noticing, how many players are moving?
Just
1, 2. These 2 have to move, they're blockers, right? But there's more people reading, and there's less people moving. If you run a rotational defense, when the set goes out, or the set goes back, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 players going to a specific spot on the court, right? Because they have to protect the area. By the time they get there, do you think there's any time to look at the hitter? That'd be really hard. That makes sense? It's a hard thing to do, right? So there's pros, there's advantages, and there's disadvantages to like playing defense in certain types of ways. So we just kind of introduced to you guys today team defense and individual defense. Does that make sense? You know, we talked about like the different ways to do it, right? Most important thing that we need to take away is these keys. 1, position, stop, knees bent, arms are ready. 2, and the most important skill, ball setter, ball hitter. Ball setter, ball hitter, right? Ball, not going over, setter, look at the setter, set, going this way, hitter, right? Block. Like you start to look and you get really comfortable with that sequence, right? Then you gotta start realizing, oh, it's a tip. I can just come up and play it. Whoa, she's bringing that arm back. All right, I might get ready to hit. This coming hard at me, right? Right. So the more we read and the less we move, the better positions we can be in. But here's the deal: it takes a lot of practice, right? Both with your positioning, where you stand, right, and the movements that you make. Like a player that's going to the line, they need to be able to shuffle and be really good. It should be something like they just kind of step and they hop, and they should be really good at just making that move and keeping their eyes and their body facing the hitter, right? It's really important that blockers learn how to move together, right, and how to block with their hands going up at the same time, right? It's really important that the defenders are in good position, stopped, and get practice digging the ball from parts of the court. So if I dig from here, and my objective is to put the ball here, I have to angle my arms right to left, kind of like passing if I'm passing on the right side of the court. If I'm digging on the left side of the court and I have to dig there, I got to get good at angling towards the middle of the court, right? So both it's like memory and trying to learn how to actually pass and get what you need to get, and also, right, reading. So to me, there's 2 things always. It's like learn the movements. Learn how to move, learn how to dig, learn how to angle, learn how to dig this way, right? And then it's learn what to look for, right? I think it's important to identify which sequence goes first. If you only knew how to read, but didn't know how to dig, then all your reading would be useless, because you would dig the ball and the ball would just come down. That makes sense? So you learn how to dig and you learn how to move, right? And you do it very blocked, like, hey, coach is gonna hit. Let's learn how to control the ball this way. Coach is going to control the ball this way. Then, when you get really proficient at the skill, the motor skill, then you start incorporating eyes. Makes sense? Cool. It's my first time doing this with a class. I just think it's really important that you guys kind of get an understanding of what that looks like. So it's 1:27. We can go in there, and I want to just play some defense for like 20 minutes. We do that?